Good. Is it on?
Yep.
Okay.
1 minute
Sure. That's good.
before I choke.
Jeez, it's kind of empty in here.
We're good. We'll go. I'll call the March 19th County Board to order. We've already stood and pledged to the flag. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the presented agenda.
So moved.
Joan,
Second.
Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We'll move on to the consent items. Please review. And I'll entertain a motion after review.
I'll move.
Warren moved.
Second.
All seconds. All in favor of consent items?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent items passed. Thank you. Move on to the county board issue form. I'd like to just make a statement. I do need to leave this meeting about 11:30. So at that time, wherever we're at in the agenda, I'll have to call for a reappointment of somebody to conduct the meeting after that point. So, and also we have to stay on track. We do have a 10:10 public hearing. So that being said, Paul, go ahead.
I have a few things. For once, I have a few things. First thing is, and I thank you for this. I sent out a message to Chuck to help me with this one, but I met with a few folks about the snowmobile trail and four-wheeler trail on the old railroad grade between Crookston and Fertile. There were some folks that were concerned about the maintenance and upkeep of the trail, and it wasn't even so much the trail itself, but it was some of the safety issues they had with there's a couple of railroad or bridge trestles there, and there's a couple of spaces right before the bridges. The spaces are getting from whether it's washouts or whatever. And if you ever a four-wheeler rider or whatever, and you ride on these trails and you get to those kind of bridges, then the space, they had pictures and stuff, and I just informed them to bring the pictures to you, and then you would send them on to Rich, because I'm pretty sure you guys informed me that it is our trail to make sure that we take care of it. It looks as if those spaces are getting to be around 12 inches wide, and we should do something with them, because if you hit them at any type of speed and you don't know they're there, we could have a mishap, and I don't want to have any mishaps, especially depending on who's on those trails. I know that, and I don't even know what the law basically is there with age, but if you have a smaller four-wheeler and you have a family that's coming in, they have some smaller kids with those smaller four-wheelers, those would go into that crevice, and that would be more dangerous. So we should look at those and at least do something, whether it's, I don't know, I'm sure Rich could figure it out, somehow fix it. So, and they were very receptive to that. So, and I'm sure they must have brought you something already. I'm assuming they did.
No, but Rich will.
Maybe they did already to Rich.
Yeah.
Okay. Then on the 12th, we went to the Tri-Valley meeting. That's always a good meeting. Those people have their stuff together and they just go right down the line, and it's a good organization. They really, nothing that was really pressing. They did talk about the building across the across from the Fournier building, their old building, right? And that's basically put on hold because they don't know what they're gonna be able to do with it now. So that was their biggest thing. Otherwise, it's general business as usual. So that was all pretty much nothing new there from the regular meeting.
I can just add to that.
Go ahead.
That I met with Jason.
Yes,
and,
he told me that he was going to meet.
Corky Reynolds on Friday, and one of the things that we're talking about is what's the vision for the property.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's some interest in housing from the city. They've done a housing study, and so they're following up on a few things, and that we know our role is likely to be tip fees, something like that, but there's so much more to that property that I think that they will facilitate some further discussion.
Discussion,
With their board.
and they kind of said that because they had talked about that before, so they kind of just let that be because they knew they were meeting. So, the next thing I had was on the 6 county solid waste meeting. Very good meeting. My first time to it. John does an extremely good job, and I was impressed with everything that he had to say there. My biggest issue with most of these kind of committee meetings, and I am strictly a money crunch. I don't like wasteful spending, but myself, we have these committees that we go to, and it's nothing against the number of people that we have there, but I really struggle with the fact that we have 2 commissioners there, plus Chuck, plus John. He gives such a good thing, and we knew most of the stuff there because he gives us a good thing. Plus we had Jake there. Plus we had just the general information. I don't think there was anybody else from our county there. There were the 5 people.
Debbie was there.
Oh, Debbie, yeah. Okay. And I don't have a problem with the committee, but if Joan, you can't be there, I'll come. That kind of thing. I don't, if that's, and I don't know if there's a law, a rule, or something that you guys have that there's 2 people got to be there. I don't know that. But not that they can't be there, but to me, that's too many. To me, that's wasteful spending. That's just how I feel. That's all I have to say about that. But as far as the meeting, awesome. He does a great job. I'm a little bit perturbed about the fact that that particular person that he talked about wasted a lot of money over the last few years, and we had to pay for it. I don't like that thought, but apparently that'll be taken care of in the future, I hope. Dancing Sky was yesterday. Another extremely good meeting. The aging populace. It's ironic, but that meeting, I never knew what I was getting into. I didn't know much about it, except that when I got there, I learned all about it. But there is a lot of their function has to do with mostly all federal funds that are funneled through the state. I didn't see anywhere where there's any funds funneled from our level to them. So the board just oversees, from my understanding, is how that the funds are allocated properly, I think. So they do a real good job, and it's with the senior meals and throughout, but it's mostly run through this Lutheran Social Services is what they gave. There is a distribution site within our county. We have East Grand Forks is the only distribution site that they work through for the senior meals program with Lutheran Social Services. But from that particular distribution site, they send out through Foston has a distribution site, whether it's ready-made frozen meals, and then Erskine, I do believe, was one of the other places. Okay, good deal. It's a good deal. And most of the time was spent on the meal programs. Great deal. I got a lot of other information of how we can get some of the other um, communities within our county involved, as well as the food shelves. And they're gonna touch base with me and see if we can incorporate it. Yeah, ironically, my wife is trying to reestablish outside of the city proper the fertile food shelf. So I'm trying to get that going. But the frozen meal portion for the adults over 60 would be pretty cool to add that to the food shelf deal. Knew nothing about that. So the ladies, they're going to do some stuff. And then they talked about the Medicare and how they can also work with getting how insurance funding for secondary insurances go. They have a lot of help in that department, and a lot of the local establishments, healthcare establishments, how whether these when these people go to the hospitals, to the clinics, and or need to get their um, pharmaceuticals and things like that, reimbursement is really tough if they don't have that secondary insurance, and then they're stuck with these costs, and therefore they're not getting these reimbursements and stuff. So part of their process with this within this agency, within the Dancing Sky agency, is to help the aging establish and obtain these services. So really a good group of people. They were all over me at the end because of what I do in the inn. So they're going to give me all kinds of information. So that was good too. Dancing Sky. Next meeting is in June in Moorhead. March 13th, I got an email from Mike Moore. I sent about the Maple Lake Improvement District. I sent the email to Chuck because I didn't know how to get the answer. Chuck helped me with that. It was regarding the fishing pier. Apparently, there's 2 fishing piers on Maple Lake. One that is up to date, one that had been taken out that was, and Chuck informed me it was not up to date. It was dilapidated, and they removed it. He informed me that the DNR was up on making a new one. Got me the information. I emailed them back. Haven't heard back, but
Rich might be able to
help us a little more on that.
facilitate something.
Yeah, but otherwise, he got his information. I'm sure he's quite pleased because I got back to him within 2 days. That's kind of remarkable, even for me. So, then the last thing. Sorry, I don't usually talk this much about anything. Caucuses. I went to a couple caucuses. The biggest thing they all turned to me and asked me about was voting in person. They all want to vote in person. Okay. How do you do this? How do you go about it? I just gave them the best information I knew was go to your townships, lobby your townships, get in there, ask them how to go about it. Nothing we can do for this year. You got to do it, because I remember when Sam was here, he explained that we had a couple of new townships that were now going back to voting in person since the pandemic deal. So I just gave them that information, and then so I got 2 calls at home and at the caucuses as well. So that was good. There you are.
Thank you, Paul. Because of budget or timeline constraints, I'm going to cut comments at 9:50, but go ahead, Warren.
Okay, I had, a week ago Thursday, we had the Transportation Advisory, no, can't even think of it now, probably. Anyway, it's to distribute the federal funds for transportation now. alternatives, TAP funding is what I was trying to think of. Anyway, that was done at McIntosh, and it was dealing with $1.1 million in funds available for projects coming up in the years ahead. There were four applications for that money, and they totaled about twice that much money. But the committee decided that they would try to allocate the funds coming a year from now into this whole program. And with the four projects in place or in competition, the city of Crookston project was rated #1. That's the one where they're going to convert the 3 lanes on Broadway and Main to 2 and create bike lanes and do some other things. And the city of Crookston has its own project in conjunction with this that's not included in any of this discussion, but that's the area that goes beyond Robert Street to the south. Anyway, that project, like I say, was rated #1. And that was they were requesting $1.12 million, of which $80,000 is carryover money from 2026 funds, and $1 million from the 2027 allocation, and another 40,000 from fiscal year 2028. Now, that's the advanced funding again. Anyway, that rated position, or that project was rated #1, and it will be done in 2027. The the city of Bemidji project, that was for some extension of trails in the city, basically to accommodate foot traffic, or maybe even vehicle traffic, the little cart traffic to schools and such. Anyway, that was a request for $244,000. That would be done in 2028. It was approved. The city of Austin, that was extension of trail again in city. That's a $349,000 project, and that would be done in 2028 as well. And then this fourth project in there with city of River Falls, another trail extension project. That was for $592,000. That ran over the top of the money involved. That's what some of the carryover money is going to be spent on that one as well. And that will be done in 2025, and that's ahead of everything else. But that's using some funds from another program, from the carbon reduction program funding. So anyway, that will be done in 2025. All four of those projects are done and in place within the next 3 to 4 years. In all of these projects, the project covers 80% of the total cost of the project, and then the local gets 80% or 20% plus the cost of engineering. So these are not free to the local units. Anyway, it's kind of one of the most important meetings of the year that this group has. We will be dealing with the carbon reduction funds in the next meeting, and that's a whole different animal. Corrections was on Monday. We had 137 in jail on that day. There's 142 was the average for the month of February. Kind of different in that the totals on Monday, Monoman only had 8 prisoners there, and they are contracted for 30. They pay for 30. So we can see if that's just a one-time thing, or there's going to probably be some effort to renegotiate that whole contract. And it's kind of different too in that Norman County didn't have any prisoners. Red Lake County had 1. So the 2 small counties in our group had 1 prisoner versus, as a part of that 137 on that day. So kind of wonder about that whole arrangement too. But income for the month was $112,589, And that included $43,000 from the Marshal Service, which is, numbers are up there and well, they pay more than the other groups. The juvenile center had 10 at that day, 4 of them insecure. That's the part of this operation that was shut down because of the door problem and other things and staffing mainly. The average for in February was 8. There were 53 new cases in probation, 66 closed, and the new U.S. Marshal Service contract will increase from $75 a day to $95 a day. It's a 3-year contract. That'll add some more possibility for revenue there, and that's enough out of me. Oh, we did the canvassing too last Thursday. Of course, there were no changes. Everything is done just perfectly by Sam and his crew.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Let's leave, that's okay, at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I am here this morning to request a replacement as a result of a resignation of a social worker child protection specialist classification in our children's mental health unit. So I'm looking at board approval to fill a social worker child protection position and to fill any internal subsequent position vacancies occurring because of this action.
Second.
Paul and Warren. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
You. Sheriff Tadman,
Good morning.
we do have to adjourn at 10:10 for public hearing, so.
Quick. I'm gonna have emergency manager Jody Pashang go first, and he's gonna discuss their first.
You'll be good. You'll be good.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think the hearing is
Fine.
gonna take very long.
Bring your chair behind you. No, the rock one behind, one more.
Mine won't take that long. I'll go first then? Okay, so I'm looking for approval to sell 2 of our drones. We have an older Matrice drone. It's one of our large drones. We purchased it in 2018, and then we have a mid-size one, which is a Mavic 2. We purchased about 3 years ago. Both drones are old. We can't update them no more. We can't get batteries for them no more. If we do, they're refurnished batteries. FAA just came up with a new ruling, so all our drones have to have, it's called a remote ID. And to make them work in our drones, you basically got to tape this thing to the top of the drone or Velcro it. I did order 2 of them. They're $660. They're still new in the box. If you decide not to sell them, I can put them on the drones. If we sell them, I can send them back for a full refund. So if we auction them off, I'm guessing we're going to get around $7,000 or more for the older Matrice, and probably around $800 or more for the Mavic 2. All new drones now have the remote ID built in them, so we won't have to purchase remote
What does
ID.
that ID do?
When it goes up in the air, it's just like an airplane, gives off a transponder, so people monitor it and knows who exactly the drone belongs to.
Okay.
You know.
What's the range of prices of new drones? What you'd be looking at?
Once we sell them, we're going to look at some other new ones, but probably to get another, we have Matrice 30T, probably looking at 15,000. We're looking at probably another Mavic 3, which is going to run around 5,000. That one would be used for bridge inspections and search and rescue also. That has a thermal built in it.
Is this in the budget?
No, we're gonna keep on working on it, depending on what we get out of here. We need to replace at least the first one, so we're depending on what price we get, depends on what we're gonna go after. But if we don't get rid of these, then we're down to, like they said, is possibly 50% loss from this year. And the same thing is, we've got to go with the highway if they're still interested in doing that. So
You have some surplus funding too.
Yes, we do, but again, we're gonna go off, the first thing is to see what we're able to get from them and then purchase as we go, not just blindly go out there and purchase them if it's not in the budget.
But these are units that we need.
Yes, to update, yes, we do. Because of what Jody had talked about.
I'm familiar with the FAA ruling on the ID of the drones per se.
Right.
So
If we wait another year, they're speculated to drop another 50%, like Sheriff Tadman said.
Yeah, this
so.
is a no-brainer. I move we do this. This is, I feel strongly we need to take care of this and move ahead with this.
Paul makes a motion,
I'll second.
Warren seconds. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first up, we're gonna have the sheriff's report for the month. Is our documented services. We had paid services of $2,226.30, and our no charge services was $2,002.54. Do you want me to run this? If I can find it. I'll be here all day. Do you have the reports?
You won't be here all day.
I know, but I will be running this thing, so I apologize. February for our transports, I'll continue with that. We had a total of 7,104.6 miles with hours of service of 137.75 hours that we were out on patrol. Our biggest jump up was our Minnesota prison jail runs. We had 4,022.8. And then our federal transports that we had this month was 627.7 for February. And for our call county by category, and this is for our dispatch center, we had a total of 2,060 total calls. Emergency was 592, one for 1,468 non-emergency. So again, 2,060 total calls. And then for our calls by month for the month of February, that'd be just a little bit further down. We had the agency assist stand out as 17, our civil process 190, and then our domestic we had 4 total, with 3 being violent, and then emotional distress 1, fights 2. Motorist assist we had 23, and then for crashes we had 11 total with 1 injury crash. And on the next page is public assist. We had 23. Our school patrol, we had 97. And then suspicious activities, persons, vehicles, we had a total of 10 that we responded to. And then our traffic stops for the month of February were 164. And then our complaints were a total of 11 with our traffic. So that kind of updates the monthly reports. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay. The next thing I want to do is do an update of where we're at with hiring concerns, issues that we're facing right now. So I gave you what our office looks like and where they're located. So just an update, the sheriff's office is facing challenging times with our recruitment of deputies. The last couple of years have taken a toll on the sheriff's office. Looking back on how we have been down deputy position, appears that we've not been fully staffed since October 2020. In 2021, we were anywhere from 1 to 4 deputies down. Seems like we hire and train new deputy, and then another would leave to another department or retire. The last 2 years, we have been down anywhere from 3 to 5 deputies. Currently, where we sit now, as you can see on the chart that I gave you, we are 5 open positions, and we have another deputy on military leave, so a total of 6. I was advised a couple weeks ago that we have another deputy received a conditional offer from another department, and he's in the process of being backgrounded at this time. So we have been down 6 total deputies since October 2023. Again, 5 open positions with the 6th deputy on military leave and then the 1 being backgrounded. So for hiring, what are we doing? We've attended colleges, career fairs, open deputy positions posted in the papers and on the Minnesota website. We're looking to add a part-time community service officer position to get assistance with everyday tasks and to get them in the door before they graduate from college. We're also looking at tuition possibilities. This would be reimbursement towards coursework for their degree. There would be a 3-year sign-on with any tuition reimbursement. I've been working with HR to finalize this, and I'm really excited to see if this will change things. Graduation for our law enforcement colleges is just around the corner. Retention, this is what we've been trying to do with retention in our office. We put together a new Deputy 2 position. For Deputy 2, a deputy must have 5 years of service and must complete the Minnesota Sheriff's Association Institute for Credible Leadership Development training, which is 179 post-credit hours for training. They can move into a Deputy 2 position. Hopefully, this not only helps with retention, but also builds stronger leadership skills in deputies for future supervisory positions. From day one, a new deputy has goals in front of them, steps to get further up in the office. For veteran officers, this means maybe a higher place to start with added leadership training. I want to thank the Public Safety Board and HR office for working with me on this to get it accomplished. The problem is there's 278 police departments, sheriff's office, including state patrol, listed on the post website at this time. Many departments such as ours need multiple officers just around the area. New candidates, what do we have around us? Northland College is graduating 13. Hibbing College is 13 and Alexandria is 78 officers. There is 4-year colleges out there, but they have to attend skills first, and that usually takes in the summer times. So it's been 4 years now since we've been fully staffed, and this is the big thing we are trying to get through is we hire, train new deputies, and they leave for another department. Looking back is why they are young. First, because is where they start in the office. Every officer wants to be on patrol answering calls for service, and that's what they go to college for. The Justice Center, transporting of inmates is part of the sheriff's statutory duties. Securing the Justice Center, building entrance, courtrooms, and judges is crucial. Second reason is because they feel there is better opportunity officers from other agencies. It's the highest of all time for open patrol positions in the state of Minnesota. We train them, mentor them, and they move to another agency. You know, maybe this is the part of doing the cost, but we spend up to about $8,000 to $10,000 per deputy that we bring in. This is training, equipment, overtime, and PTO pay. A problem. This is a large county, just shy of 2,000 square miles. A little background is due to all the small towns slowly diminishing their full-time and part-time police departments, it has made our jobs more difficult to be in the right area, time of the call. For emergency calls or critical incidents, we are not in the area. That town officer would usually be there if needed first response or backup. Now with no part-time officers, it's just the sheriff's office response. It's a large county to cover. We had Fertile had up to 5 officers at one time. Erskine had 2. McIntosh 1 with a part-time, and then Mentor 1, Climax 2. And depending on the schedule, those were the officers that assisted us out there with those backup and emergency calls. Not sure why all the small towns went away. I'm thinking budgets. Our crime didn't go away. Our mental health is at an all-time high right now. Crisis calls, critical incidents, shootings, we have them in Polk County. Any sheriff's goal is able to provide the best law enforcement service for the county. Mark, you said it yourself when you came to talk to me about that incident at your house. One of the first things you said is you weren't happy with the time it took for the officer to respond to your incident. Sometimes we respond from call from gully to mentor to trail. There's no fast way to get some calls if you are not in the area. It's not choice, it's just this county we live in. Due to these issues, my goal as sheriff is to put deputies so they are in a position to be in the area so they're not driving red lights and sirens anywhere. This is dangerous for public and the deputy. Now comes the generation of deputies, officers. It just started about 8 to 9 years ago. Finding out that officers are not interested in working where they do not have backup is, or 10 to possibly 30 minutes away. I know we lost deputies to other police departments because of this issue. This is concerning. I cannot control this. Just the other day, they had a ride along, and one of the first questions is, wow, this is a big county. How long might backup be before they arrive? Hiring, because just hiring somebody just because I'm not interested in hiring just because they apply for our office. I'm on my 36th year. I work too hard to lose everything. I don't want the liability, and I don't think the county does either. I want to be able to hire the best that's available out there. I get the issues we're facing with graduation numbers. That's why I'm here to have the discussion and brainstorm. What are we going to do to attract new deputies, veteran officers in Polk County and try to keep them? So I'm asking you as commissioners to help me. How are we going to get there? We have to continue to provide great law enforcement service for the county. I invite you to come to my office to meet with about this issue and give me your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And the Sheriff indicated we did have a conversation after our incident, and the deputy that first responded, he was on the phone, and we felt comfort that way. But at the end of the whole discussion, I mean, he was, I believe, east of Red Lake Falls, and because of staff issues, and he did call us right away. But it does take time to drive from wherever to wherever, and this is a big county, and your situation in your department is, unfortunately, it's the state of affairs in Minnesota and other states. And a matter of fact, at the drainage conference I was at beginning of February, talking to some fellow commissioners there from different counties, the conversation came up over lunch and dinner. How are you feeling,
Yeah.
deputies, and so forth and so on. So it's not only your department; it's, like you said, statewide and even nationally.
Yep.
It's a problem out there, and we've got to reverse it because of our citizenships don't feel safe. It's a problem.
Yep. No, we have dedicated staff. They're committed to doing what they're doing right now to keep it going. It's just taking a toll. So I just want to let you know where we're at, and we'll continue to get through. So
Do you have ideas?
no, we've met with the public safety board. Some of the stuff I mentioned, what we are doing, hopefully it turns around for us, because just in our area, our district, there's 30 some sheriff's offices, police departments looking for 1 to 2. There's many. We have the most in the area
No,
of
we
5.
have 6 and one.
Yeah,
now
one's being backgrounded. So as long as we just got to continue to keep on trying to do a little bit better than the next one, or else again, it's in their court. They can go where they want. So, but
But it's not necessarily a money issue, or is it?
oh, it's everything. It's what people are offering. Retention, they're offering bigger bonuses for coming. There's so much stuff out there. And again, I've worked with the public safety board to try to get things where we're at. And we're trying a couple different things like the community service officer, trying to get them before they get out of graduation. But we have to keep on going forward and start thinking outside the box. And I just wanted to give you what we face, what the reasons are, because some of them are coming. But again, I invite you to come to the office and sit down. So
Okay, we'll set a time.
I know you said
All right, thank you,
Okay.
Sheriff. And I think your presentation was well heard and well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'm going to call on Jake Schneider. We have on the agenda a land use zoning ordinance amendment and have a public hearing shortly.
Can I have that mouse?
No?
You're in control of it. I think I only have about 70 slides, so
Look like 70 to me.
that's what I said, 70. Morning, everyone. Do you have to start the public hearing? We're at 10:10.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll,
Well, first you just go over the review of it and then we open up the hearing.
you want to give a quick
Yeah.
overview?
Yep, I will. I didn't know if you wanted to formally start that the public hearing is underway for the local land use zoning ordinance amendments. So our planning commission, as well as staff, review the county ordinance, and we do this typically at the end and the beginning of the year to see if there's any type of themes or are there something that we want to kind of touch on for additions, amendments, and so on. Two were kind of glaring things that have just been themes reoccurring for the past 10 years. And a lot of the things is dealing with accessory uses, accessory structures.
Maybe I'll open up the public hearing and you'll go into the dirty details of it during
Yep.
that time. So
Yep.
we need to open the public hearing. Motion,
Motion to open at 10:10.
Joan,
Second.
Lauren seconds. Public hearing is open.
Okay, so there's really two sections that we're going to go over today for proposed amendments. And section 13 is our general agricultural district. And the proposed ordinance amendment to that is to remove the square footage limitations for non-agricultural accessory uses. So sheds, garages, would be any parcel that's over 1.5 acres. The thing that's going to regulate the accessory structures and how big is the 25% impervious limitation. So it's not to say there still isn't standards in the ordinance that can regulate these things, but for the past 5 years we've kind of been having some very awkward public hearings on the planning commission level about the whys. Why are we regulating accessory outbuildings in our general agricultural district? The board, our planning commission felt that if they have the land to build the structure, then they should be allowed to build the structure. In our shoreland ordinance, for example, a parcel, a property that's a backlot, you could construct the same thing you could do on an egg district lot that's 2 to 5 acres in size. And so there's this, our shoreland district is always kind of our more heavily regulated district than our egg district. So it's almost for the last 15, 20 years, it's been that we're kind of pushing these bigger buildings out to our shoreland district, which didn't make a lot of sense to me, right? If somebody owns a property in our egg district and our shoreland district, and they want to build a storage building for boats and things that they have, their snowmobiles, their trailers, they should be able to do that in the egg district. You know, that's not an agricultural use, and that's really the thing that I guess jumped off the page the most is that an agricultural building it's exempt from the square foot limitations. And so people would come in and say, well, the farmer down the road just built a huge outbuilding, and I just want to, I'm not a farmer. I just want to build something similar. So hence we kind of looked at our whys and what have yous about our egg district and why we have those square foot limitations. And I guess today in section 13, it would be to not have accessory buildings regulated through conditional use processes. So before our ordinance was set up in this manner in section 13.7000, is for non-agricultural buildings, so an accessory structure of over 4,000 square feet on parcels greater than 2 but less than 5. And then for accessory structures over 8,000 and over 5, the planning commission felt let's just not have a conditional use regulation and let square footage limitations be limited by 25% impervious coverage. So we did, however, still feel that our parcels that are substandard to the ordinance. So we have a lot of parcels, and typically these parcels are located near city limits. So south of East Grand Forks, north of East Grand Forks, several around Crookston that are substandard of 1.5 acres. They were just developed in a time when we didn't have those regulations. So a lot of these parcels are pre-70s. And they're roughly around an acre, some are a half acre. We felt the ordinance still should have some regulations on those parcels, not just allow the impervious to be the limitation. But to say the maximum for anything that's substandard of 1.5 acres would be the 1,200 square foot limitation. Formerly, that section 134210 was stated anything under 2 acres in size would be held to these limitations. The verbiage changed to 1.5 acres then, because that is a substandard parcel. Any questions? I lose anybody? So then we flip to our shoreland regulations. And in the past, our shoreland regulations were, no matter the parcel size, the maximum square footage that you could put up was 2,400 square feet in size. And this would be those parcels that are located either on a lake, and you can get over 300 feet away from that lake, then you could go bigger with a structure, or those that are non-riparian, so those that don't touch the lake, like a backlot. It didn't matter if that parcel was 40,000 square feet or 40 acres in size. The threshold was 2,400 square feet. So really, the idea behind this amendment in our shoreland district is to allow larger parcels to construct larger accessory buildings, but still have caps on those. And so where I get these square footages is really derived from the ordinance. And so it's tough in the shoreland district because we have different classifications of lakes, right? We have our lakes that are heavily developed, our recreational and general development lakes. And then we have our lakes that aren't really heavily developed. And so there are we call them natural environment lakes. The DNR is the one that breaks those 3 out. And so in that district, the minimum lot size is 80,000 square feet for a natural environment lake. Hence kind of our grouping here, 0 to 80,000 square feet. The regulation isn't going to change for those parcels. It's still a maximum size 2,400. That is a permitted use. That means it's just a general permit through our office. It doesn't go through the conditional use process. But then there's a caveat that you're only allowed 2 accessory buildings up to that limitation of 3,200, which is the current regulation as it stands today. We're simply breaking it out in 0 to 80,000, 80,000 to 240,000 square feet. Again, that would be something that would be a larger parcel. So roughly around just under 2 acres to just under 5 acres in size. They'd be allowed to do a 3,200 square foot building on a parcel that size, and 4,000 combined. And then so on. I guess the next grouping is a little under 5 to 7.5, 7.5 to 10, and then once you get over 10 acres, it's pretty large outbuilding. So the thing is that those larger than 3,200 square feet would still have to go through the conditional use process. It allows the county to limit some things like vegetation, clearing, between this structure and the lake. So it still allows us some way to limit some of these uses. And we're not talking about commercial buildings. We're talking about just residential accessory outbuildings. Commercial use of any building in our shoreline district is going to trigger a conditional use right off the top. It doesn't matter the size of the outbuilding. So I just wanted to clarify that. And really the biggest change is this table and having kind of a breakout of larger parcels. You're able to build larger outbuildings. So anything in the shoreland district, I have to get Minnesota DNR approval to amend our shoreland ordinance. The letter in the packet today just talks about that it is substantially compliant with our statewide rules. The amendment is not going to break any of the DNR local model ordinances. And really the side caveat is reached out to neighboring counties, Beltrami County, Clearwater County, Becker County, Hubbard County. None of them have regulations like we do for outbuilding size. They allow 25% to be their coverage. So that's why you're getting a letter that says, hey, you're substantially compliant, because there is nothing in the DNR model ordinance that regulates these.
Question on the square footage of the parcels. How do you propose, let's say an applicant says he wants to build a certain size out structure that falls into the conditional use area, but his parcel that he wants to construct it on is not big enough, but he's possibly talking about combining two parcels to comply with. How do you foresee that process going?
Well, in a conditional use process, you could force those two to be combined, and to tie those together, and that could be one of the conditions, that you add parcel A and parcel B together, and then you're granted your conditional use permit. For those that are trying to build, oh, well, I don't quite have 10 acres, but I want to do a 6,000 square foot outbuilding, they would have to go through a variance process. And so anything not within the table and the size limitations of the lot proposed would have to go through the variance process. It would not be a conditional use to just jump up another category. It'd be through the variance. And that's caveat number 5 in there. Just states that to exceed the square footage limitation maximum or combined in the table, C3 must be processed as a variance. So
the conditional use could be a requirement of combining parcels to comply and still do the conditional use.
correct. Okay. Yep. I would check with the recorder's office. Sometimes there's a reason why two parcels can't be tied together. It happens a lot of times. If it's two different plats and things, then that's something that administratively we need to figure out how to tie those together, because typically it involves like replatting property. There's just some caveats to that. When we're crossing sections or we're crossing lines, then we have some different things we need to do. They might need to plat the property in order to do that. So it would be a process, and then we'd have to go through the conditional use.
All right, thank you.
So these proposed changes will kind of take care of any issues that you've seen that have popped up with property owners?
We've had about 5 different requests for large tracts of land that have just kind of come under the microscope that, hey, well, why am I being held to 40 by 60? I own 30 acres or I own 40 acres. And typically it's on these lakes that are like natural environment lakes. I don't see this affecting properties on Maple, Union, Sarah. If I had to guess, you'd probably be looking at a dozen or less parcels that are being affected, because those parcels are all substandard of 80,000 square feet. and that's conversations we've had. We've noticed this out to as many people and as many agencies as we can, our improvement districts and things, and they share information with their constituents too. So the thing is it just opens us, before to go over that is a variance, and the biggest hurdle with a variance is the caveat that a landowner can't create the need for the variance. Well, if you want a big outbuilding, you're creating the need for that variance. But should it be allowed that a larger parcel should be able to have a larger outbuilding? I guess the planning commission and staff feel that that's correct. They should be able to construct a larger building if they control multiple tracks. The thing that we found is not allowing that has created where they're just subdividing the parcel, and maybe they don't want to do that. Or the other thing is they're adding living quarters to these structures and making them dwellings and not sheds to get around these. Well, some people don't want a dwelling. They don't want another septic. They just want a storage building. And our regulations are kind of forcing them to go outside the box and almost skirt around the rule anyway. So the planning commission and staff felt we just need to make adjustments to our ordinance so that we're not creating and forcing loopholes. Just they have a larger track to do it. Allow a process that's not a variance to kind of govern that. So
One of the other questions I had, and it was on the ag amendments. Did I see in there was a 25-foot height requirement?
that's in our shoreland district.
Oh, okay.
25-foot height restriction is still in place for any accessory building. We feel that's adequate to have a large outbuilding, and the height has never really come into play that, I want to do a 30-foot, I want to do 22-foot sidewalls or something, is it really never come into play.
Okay.
So
Is there on the ag side of the ordinance limited footage as far as height?
the height limitation in our ag district is 35 feet.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
With that, I guess, unless there's no further questions, and I don't know if anybody in attendance. Well, it's Rich. I thought it was somebody else. Rich, you don't have any opposition. Rich has lots of opposition to this. He won't get emailed on every conditional use anymore. So I feel kind of we're swapping conditional uses on our department level. Like, we're not going to do conditional uses for ag buildings, but we open the caveat that now we could possibly do more in our shoreline district. But again, the flip side of that is I feel the shoreline district is more heavily regulated anyway, and it should be. It's by our lakes, runoff, all those types of things that we still take into consideration on any conditional use request. So
Jake, you and I have had discussion. It's been a little while on tiny homes and that kind of stuff. These amendments, I didn't see any modification to a dwelling size requirement or anything.
no, the way that the tiny homes and things would get governed, it's a dwelling. It doesn't matter what it's defined in our ordinance as a dwelling. It doesn't matter if that dwelling 600 square feet in size or 6,000 square feet in size. It is a dwelling. To have multiple dwellings on a parcel is already regulated in all districts. The one thing is to have communities with tiny homes. Where it would fit in our ordinance would be a multifamily housing development. They'd be looking at rezoning to our commercial or industrial districts. And so that will come before the planning commission, the board, any way you do it. You could split off the land and do a planned unit development that will come to the board, just like a plat does, just like subdivision already does.
Okay.
We don't know where we can fit in and regulate across all districts with that concern, is right now it's covered in there. Especially for, your concern that we've already discussed about, like, the new regulations of, you know, they're allowing churches and religious entities to be able to do this to counteract homelessness and those types of things. I did watch the briefing on it online, and to me, it doesn't matter that they still have to go through a special process, even though they're an entity. It doesn't have anywhere. There's no loophole that says an entity just circumvents around our regulations, and we do countywide zoning. So I'll kind of remind us, we do border to border outside of our cities. We do the zoning. Some of our counties, they don't, in our ag district, they don't even have rules. Red Lake counties, I'm talking with Kurt up there. They're having some issues with solar farms coming in and wanting to come in. They don't have that district use. They don't regulate it unless it's in a sensitive area, floodplain, shoreland. So they're looking at amending and having some things that they do countywide zoning for. So I don't feel there's a spot in the county where cities, they'll do their own thing. They'll govern their rules, and outside the cities, it'll have to come through and the board will decide those. So.
Okay, thank you. At this, are you?
I just have the resolution in front of you. So would be final action to amend the Polk County zoning ordinance to what's presented today. One minor detail in H here, I have the language that the larger structure will be set back from the township road right of way. I'd like that to read the road right of way, not just on a township road. It would be any road right of way. So to slash township from that language. Apologize that didn't get done, but it should be any road right away. It didn't matter. You want them pushed off your county roadways, don't you?
Well, yeah, and I want them further, well, I want them at 100 on certain roads and 25 on others, so how does that?
Well, in our shoreline district?
Yes.
Well, then we got to strike the whole thing off there then. But right now it's 40 off any road right away. Right. For a larger building. So in our ag district, it's 100.
Correct. So the only issue I have is all roads aren't equal when it comes to, so like CASA 12 and CASA 10, to have a 25-foot setback from the right of way for a large structure could cause maintenance issues, could cause other things. That's why on most of our major roads, it's 100 feet out in the rural area. There's other roads that we suck in a little bit or give them a variance to get closer to. But County Road 231 that runs right along the edge of the lake, you can't have a 100-foot setback because it's almost impossible. Right. So those we can understand, but you still have buildings 5 feet off the right of way that were built.
So those are road issues, not not zoning issues.
Unless correct.
And your comments could be perceived at the request for the variance, correct?
The one thing is there is a caveat to this for county state aid highways and county highways. That it's actually 50 feet off those in our shoreline district. The township road right of way language is not all the times is it a township road. It could be a private road that the township or the county doesn't assume. So me slashing out the township, the county is still going to be 50. That's not being amended today. These are just township and other local roads.
So you're just
Sorry
taking
for
off
that clarification. The county roads are still going to stay the same setbacks. These are those roads that are the others around the lake.
township. He just wants township out there.
I just want township out because if it's a private road, then there's no discussion. It's off a right of way. It doesn't matter if it's a township or a private right of way or other, because there are those roads that do that.
What adjective or verb would you want in place of township?
Slashing township altogether. It would read from the
A
road
road.
right away.
From the road right away.
Yes.
Okay, duly noted.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay,
I don't have one of them to worry about, so I don't care.
Not yet. Not yet.
Am I buying something?
I don't know. Are you?
any other comments, Jake?
No.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public, but there's no public people here. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close at 10:34.
Second,
Sorry.
all second. All in favor?
Ah,
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried to close. Thank you.
did we pass his?
No.
Not yet. Then we move on to the resolution 2024-17, amendment to the Polk County Land Use Zoning Ordinance as presented by Mr. Snyder, except for the H clause, road right-of-way, striking the township. Entertain a motion.
I move.
Paul,
Second.
Warren, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance amendment passed. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll print 100 copies and give you your new ordinances.
And don't waste your paper
There's only 298 pages to the zoning ordinance, so
reading it. More beer.
Sure,
credit.
Greg gets
Very
one.
riveting.
I still find things that are needing
I mean, you start reading. it,
further
you can't put it
discussion,
down.
but it's 298. Got a couple tackled.
Don't add anything to that.
So we'll breeze through this one. The applicant here is Kyle Schaefer. Request is a conditional use to connect the septic system to an accessory structure. Parcel located in Woodside Township, a non-riparian lot on Maple Lake. Again, this is conditional use as expressed in the zoning ordinance. Applicant owns a lot. The parcel is 6,500 square feet in size, so nowhere near anything to build any additional outbuildings. So the applicant would like to have a bathroom in the existing 30 by 50 shed. Noted on the application, be a shop shed with a bathroom, and is willing to record the no guest house waiver before the building permit is issued. Impervious coverage for the lots, 29%. Obviously, installation of a holding tank will not increase that impervious, but there is a condition, a caveat that it will not further exceed. No additional impervious can be added to the site. The applicant did secure Minnesota Department of Health variance to reduce the well setback from 50 to 36 feet. That was off his well located on the back lot. This thus pushed us in kind of an interesting predicament because they wouldn't allow a variance to be 31 feet from the well, hence pushing it closer to the property lot lines. So they didn't want to do a variance for 31, they did the variance for 36, and that pushes us to 5 feet off the property lot line instead of 10 as required by the ordinance. The applicant did receive a variance from the Board of Adjustment to reduce the property lot line from 10 to 5. And we had a few comments. Maple Lake Improvement District wanted to inquire about an easement from the neighbor to have it that they would use the neighbor's property to access the holding tank, albeit it is easier to do that. Mr. Schaefer can find ways to service the holding tank himself. So we did not put any condition that a easement would be secured from the neighbor because the neighbor won't grant him an easement anyway. Did talk to the septic pumping service, Bayside Septic, that's Dustin Ron. Dustin is able to service that septic tank in the proposed location without going on the neighboring property lot. So The neighbor's Daryl Beauchamp. Daryl also contacted our office. He just wants to clarify and make sure that there isn't any issues or by accident the holding tank does not go on his property, which is totally understandable. He does have a reference marker, but we did put a condition in that variance hearing that the property would be surveyed. And so we'll establish that property lot line and not to go any closer than 5 feet. The other neighbor, Eileen Channel, contacted our office. She didn't really have any issues with the septic holding tank, other than if it would affect them putting a water supply well on their property, which we're actually going to go across the lot. He's got a 50-foot lot, so as long as they would maintain setbacks on their back lot, that would not affect anything with the channel back lot. The other thing that you'd want to bring up is that Mr. Schaefer has had multiple campers on this backlot in the past, which we've dealt with him. He was cordial about getting rid of the campers. He had at one point had 3 campers in the backlot there. And so there's a condition, I'll just go over the condition right now. Outdoor storage of 1 camper, that's allowed in the regulations currently. That's licensed and not intended for seasonal or regular weekend occupancy. That's striking right from our ordinance standard 18.2144, and you must meet all criteria of that section. That section talks about you cannot tie it into septic, you cannot hardwire it, you cannot have decks coming off of it. It's basically to just park the camper there. The applicant has a camper, so that we foresee that there could be a camper parked there. So
But you couldn't have a family friend come there and stay there for the weekend?
we don't get too worked up about the weekend, but regular weekend occupancy. So setting it up and renting it out to your
No, I
whoever.
understand.
That is section 18.21
For gracious sakes.
If it's parked in their driveway or some place on their lot and they want to haul it out after the weekend, no issue.
Thank you, because that really is bureaucratic BS.
I'd be working all the time if that was the case.
Thank
So, conditional use, planning commission and staff recommends conditional use, no guest house uses, has to record the no guest house waiver, no future development that would further exceed the 25%, already at 29. So, outdoor storage 1 camper, meeting those regulations. Conditional use will become void 1 year after it was granted unless used. And a design from a licensed septic system contractor must be received, reviewed prior to issuance of the septic permit. I'll waive the 6 standard conditions. There was a copy of the variance issued by Department of Health and pertinent facts about we did locate the pin. Mr. Beauchamp has a surveyed marker out there. It lines up really good. We don't foresee there's going to be any issue with that property lot line moving. That's Mr. Beauchamp's marker right there. It was a surveyed point. And we have the plat. We're simply going 26.41 feet over, and that's where Kyle's pin should be. I had the metal detector out there. We were unable to verify, hey, that's where the pin is. Sometimes you can. Sometimes there's stuff out there where you're finding bottle caps, and as you can see, the ground was still frozen. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. Put a condition that it gets surveyed, and we're going to put it right at 5 feet. It should meet 36.55. Place the tank.
The one comment about the lady on her, if she puts a well in, would it encroach on her property? If the state comes out and changes their requirements on setbacks to 75 or 80 feet, what happens in this situation?
We get her a variance.
Yeah, it would have to go through the variance process, just like Mr. Schaefer's did. I don't foresee that they're going to have any amendments to their Department of Health rules. For a sealed holding tank, if they have a shallow well or a deep well, it's still 50 feet off a sealed holding tank. If it was a septic discharge area, that would eat up the whole back. It would greatly reduce the area that they could do anything on their back lot. But this being 5 feet, the tank's it's 30 feet away, and there's a 10-foot setback on the other side. It really no effect. So,
yep.
With the current regulations, if they amend it, they're going to open. There's going to be all kinds of issues on Maple Lake if they increase their setbacks.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I have a resolution for the conditional use permit approval if the board wishes.
Board wishes, entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Warren moves,
Second.
Joan seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and the only other item I have for the board is Casey Hammer and John Reitmeyer are seeking a 1-year extension of their conditional use permit for a convenience store located just west of Crookston here on US Highway 2. I guess I'll just read their letter. Well, I'm gonna read it in here because I have severe eye allergies going on right now, so. I hope this letter finds you well. I'm reaching out to seek your support and understanding regarding a unique situation we're facing with our development project of a convenience store located at 24700 270th Avenue Southwest, Crookston, Minnesota. Our vision is for this store to enhance the local community's access to everyday necessities, contributing positively to the growth and vibrancy around the property and beyond. We have encountered a significant challenge: the current state of the access road to our property, which is gravel and not paved. This condition, coupled with Lowell Township policy against upgrading and maintaining such roads, presents us with a unique predicament. We believe that our project, while slightly deviating from the standard requirements due to these extraordinary circumstances, still upholds the spirit of the community's development goals. The essence of our locality, known for its harmonious blend of rural charm and modern convenience. We will not only be preserved but also enriched by this addition. We understand how the importance of adhering to regulations and deeply respect the guidelines set forth by the county. However, in this instance, the strict application of the road paving requirement seems to impose a unique hardship to our property, given the township's stance. Enclosed, please find detailed plans of our project along with documents to further illustrate our situation. We're eager to discuss this matter at the upcoming public hearing and are open to any suggestions or solutions that would allow us to move forward in a manner that benefit all parties involved. This is really regarding, so they also seek the variance for that pavement section. In addition to the variance request, I would like to address the need for an extension of our conditional use permit. The development of our convenience store has been significantly delayed, exceeding the 1-year timeline originally anticipated. This delay is primarily due to the challenges in finalizing civil drawings, as we have encountered difficulties in coordinating with local utilities. Moreover, our efforts to engage in meaningful dialogue with Lowell Township regarding the road situation have also contributed to these delays. We have been diligently working to resolve these issues, but the complexity of our circumstances has extended beyond our control. We believe that these are reasonable grounds for requesting an extension to our conditional use permit. Your understanding and accommodation in this matter would greatly be appreciated, as it would be able to for us to proceed with our project in a manner that best serves the community's interests. And they look forward to the opportunity to further elaborate on their project. So I'll further elaborate on their project. Lowell Township denied the request that they would pave a section of the roadway 270th. They did this in fears that it would create a maintenance issue with heavy beat trucks and heavy truck traffic coming down that road, typically during harvest season. And so with that, we had granted the conditional use. It is a standard in our ordinance. A convenience store is accessed off a paved road. The Board of Adjustment felt that its proximity to US Highway 2, so their entrance is about 150 feet north of US Highway 2. And the road is in good shape. 270th, there was hardly even a pothole out there when I was out there 3 weeks ago, and still is in good repair. The Board of Adjustment did grant the variance that access does not need to be off a paved road in that situation. And thus, we still have that 1-year term to use the conditional use. So, Planning Commission and staff recommend a 1-year conditional use extension for John Reitmeyer and Casey Hammer for construction and operation of the convenience store that we issued a permit on. Approximately, it's about 2 weeks short of a year ago. Any discussion? Recall the convenience store?
Nothing's been developed and out there on the site.
Nothing has been done. The road really was they didn't want to put investment into it if the county would ultimately tell them, well, no. So hence why they had to go through the variance process. Action by the township was late in November of this past year. So they didn't get their final yay or nay from the township until late in November. And so, or I think it was late in October. Nonetheless, no, you're not paving.
Just a matter of protocol. How many times can a conditional use be extended for circumstances?
I would recommend if they don't act within this 1 year, they just go through the conditional use process again. I'll just give them another year to get construction going, and then, as I would any applicant, I'd give you another year to get things rolling. That would even be basing up and paving and doing something. Because they are going to have pavement once you get into the area. It's just that section of roadway is not going to get paved. If they're doing dirt work and grading and, utilities are coming in, that's action. That's, acting on the conditional use within a year. I don't need the building up in a year. I want to see that they're developing it. Yep. And any applicant, I'd bring it right in front of the board, 1 year extension. There's unique circumstances that sometimes the project gets delayed.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Paul moves. Second. I see ayes. I don't hear a second. I'll call for a second. Second time. Call for a second. Mr. Whiting.
Just gonna ask Jake, since this is a conditional use permit, do they have to have a reason if it is not approved?
The 1 year extension, they just go through the conditional use process over again.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion to extend passed. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I got.
No, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I got a couple other things to talk to you about too, so.
Good morning. What I have here today is the approval of HPE SimpliVity yearly lease payment. This is the final year in a 5-year lease, and the amount is for $53,211.32. Here today, just looking for motion and approval for the final payment of the server hardware to Hewlett Packard Financial Services.
This is the final payment, you said?
Final payment, yep,
How many year?
5.
5 years.
Yep.
So we look at it again next year?
Next year will be, depending on what we go with, it'll maybe be something different, but yeah, this will be the final year.
This is a budgeted item.
Correct, yep.
I'll move.
Warren moves.
Second.
Joan seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Sanders, you're late.
I'll get us going quicker then. Oh, good morning. Let's see. Okay, first we received the sign quotes. You should have had a copy of that in your packet. I believe, yes. Lowest responsible quote is from Newman Signs in the amount of $8,658.50. So I need approval to award the quote to Newman Signs of Jamestown, North Dakota.
What does this sign promote?
It's all our sign. So
Okay,
this past year, our sign man inspected signs, found signs that needed to be replaced. And so we do a sign quote at the beginning of this year to order all the signs so that he can go back out and put up the new signs this year. So that's what this is for. It's just typical maintenance of our
move to approve.
9,000 signs that are out in the county.
Motion by Mr. Strandell, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lee. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna
What's the kind of average lifespan for the reflectivity on signs?
all depends on what kind of reflectivity we order them at. Now we have the DG Cube that we normally are getting is a 6-year normal.
Mm-hmm.
So if a sign is facing east or north, they last longer than a sign that's facing south and west because they get faded out by the sun. The more they get, so that's why we have a process in which we go out and inspect all our signs. We basically split the county into 3 areas. He goes out and inspects the signs in that area, and then determines which ones need to be replaced because they're no longer meeting the retroreflectivity standards that the feds have required us to follow. And then we order the signs and replace them.
Kind of counterproductive, isn't it? Because their reflectability makes better targets.
Well, that's why, yeah. Okay.
That's another reason why they need to be replaced.
That too. Or they get hit by a vehicle, or
Once
yes.
again, the feds are telling us what to do, right?
For a good thing, for a good reason. Yes.
I understand.
But yes, so the feds have a manual on uniform traffic control, which I'm on a committee reviewing that because they just came up with a new one. And so the state is looking at putting our Minnesota manual together with our slight changes that we can do. But we have to at least meet the federal standards. One of that is the retroreflectivity of signs. The other part of that is the retroreflectivity of pavement paint. So we have both that we have to follow. Because as you get older, as you know, your eyes get more, yeah, see, you can't see as well. So we have to make sure everybody's safe as they drive their car down the road. So, any other questions on that one? Let's move to the street. I moved ahead to the street sweeper, so we do both of them back to back. Every year we get a street sweeper to come in and sweep all our roads within small cities. Lowest responsible quote this year is Pro Sweep out of Fargo, North Dakota at $160 per hour. And so you can see we got 2 quotes. One was 160, one was 170. And so we're recommending Pro Sweep at $160 an hour.
I so move.
Paul motions approval. Second.
Second.
Mr. Strandell seconds. Discussion. Hearing none. Motion to approve, or excuse me, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, we have a maintenance request on State Ditch 61 up in Gully Township. Mr. Vedelson has property in which they must do peat harvesting. And with one of the last floods we had, a lot of his peat ran off his property and into our ditch. He's willing to go back in there and harvest that peat because I think he can still sell it. And so therefore we need approval for him to go in and clean out State Ditch 61 at his expense.
How long of segment is that?
It's about a mile's worth.
Just through that section?
Yep, through section 18. So
moved.
Second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ditch cleaning of 129 passes. Excuse me.
No, the State Ditch 61.
61.
Next is County Ditch 129 maintenance request. And so Mr. Mullen has a field approach on the south side of the township road. The county ditch runs along the south side of the township road. Right now it's too narrow for his farm practices. He would like to get it wider so that he can get semis in and out of there easier. And so he has to pay for the extension, and once he's done that, then the county ditch will then take over the maintenance of that culvert. And so he's put in a maintenance request to extend the culvert through his crossing, and it shouldn't be an issue.
He pays for it, but we do the,
Once he's paid for the extension, then we
put it in.
we note that the culvert now is X amount of feet long.
Sure.
And then in the future, if there's any maintenance that needs to happen to that crossing, then the county ditch system pays for it. We're required to pay for farm and field entrances.
Any conditions to match the existing culvert or?
Yeah, he's just extending it. So
Does he puts it together and everything?
yep,
Okay, good.
it's at everything's at his expense at this time.
Okay, good.
But he's not doing steel to concrete or vice versa or a different.
He's going to extend the existing culvert by 10 feet.
Yep.
So he's going to match the existing culvert, whatever it is,
Whatever it
whatever size. Well, I can the size with probably a 10 feet of metal culvert. So it's a metal culvert with a band.
Okay. Motion to approve.
So move.
Paul moves. Second.
Second.
Mr. Strandell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Maintenance and installation of culvert passes.
Next, Pro West parcel maintenance. So we no longer have a GIS department because both have retired, or well, Rick retired last year. Nate left within the last month. So currently we have no staff for GIS, but the government process continues and people are sending in their parcel splits that they need done. And so in order to make things more efficient and allow us time to get somebody on staff, get them trained in doing parcel splits and etc. We got a parcel maintenance agreement with Pro West. They're the ones that our GIS department works with all our parcel data and etc. that we have, all our different programs. And so they do parcel maintenance. And so they sent us this request. Currently, to the best of my knowledge, the county has between 30,000 and 40,000 in population, so we fit into this category. So we can either hire them at $850 per month, $10,350 for 1 year, or $9,850 a year for 3 years. And so after discussing it with Sam and Mr. Whiting, we are recommending doing a 3-year commitment at $9,850 per year for them to do our parcel maintenance, splits, etc.
Is there a out clause? Let's say you find an experienced GIS guy next month to cancel the contract?
I'm assuming we could. We would probably just have to revert back to either paying by the month or paying for 1 year's worth of time. I can tell you right now, I think, well, I know from the discussions with Sam, that we are not going to be looking for an experienced person. That's why we're doing this now. More than likely, what we're going to look for is a college graduate that's just graduating, coming out, and then having them learn as they go. So we're going to put out the advertisement in the different colleges around the area for the lesser of the 2 GIS people. Hand me my pen. Oh, yeah.
And this
Thank you.
was it put out for a request of proposals, or does it not need to be?
Well, it's a negotiated service. So
They're about the only ones that do it. Well, a lot of people will do it. We just have an ongoing working relationship with Pro West. We already have a technical support payment for hours of technical support they give us. So this would just be an addition to that. So
It's just considered real people behind the
right,
GIS support.
yeah,
And this is your recommendation?
correct.
I so move.
Second?
Second, we had 2 people in this department before.
Correct. We have 0 right now.
What's the workload? What has some workload been eliminated or lost?
No. Oh, the workload's still there. A lot of it is the parcel maintenance and delving into different things that are happening as part of parcel stuff that's being done. And so that's one person. And then we have our apps that were developed that are still sitting there but haven't been touched for a year. So,
And the new person's gonna take over this that we're gonna hire as a freshie. A newbie.
well, yeah, and so it's going to be up to us as a group to come up with what's the priorities of the new person coming in and developing that as far as what the GIS person is doing. And then once we get that person in, if we need to hire another one, it's whether you hire a supervisor or you hire another GIS tech at that time. But with both of them being gone, it allows for more flexibility. We can decide, is it best to be housed at highway? Is it best to be housed at up here in the government center? Could it be out at environmental services? This all gives us time to figure all that out.
3 years.
Yeah, well, 3 years or 1 year for sure.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Is there any hour requirement or minimum hour or maximum hour under this bid?
No,
So if
it's just per year. We're paying them per year. Like Sam said, right now we probably have 10 to 15 of them that they have to get going on right away. During the summer, it's pretty slow, but once you get to the fall, the parcel splits start coming in more and more because people are, for whatever tax reasons, whatever, are getting, So the month of December is probably the busiest. So it is what it is, but that's what we're recommending, and it gives us the most flexibility because if we don't find somebody right away, it just gives us more time to search for the right person.
And it's not unreasonable.
No, when you're paying what we paid per person, we're going to be saving quite a bit by doing this over employing somebody to do this plus some other stuff. So the fact of the matter is my department has to pick up some of the stuff that GIS was doing for us. We have to learn how to put together a map, road restriction map, a bridge inventory map. And that's all stuff we'll learn. My guys, it's just using the software. But that's my department. Sam has his stuff that needs to get done. Jake has his stuff that needs to get done. And so that's why this will allow us time to get somebody on board so that both those departments can benefit from an individual as well.
I just hope going forward that we continue that discussion because I've stated before my concerns with the GIS and how it affects property owners, so forth and so on. And as long as we revisit that whole process sometime in the future, once we do find an employee, so forth and so on. So
I think we have board approval to replace.
Yeah, we have board approval to replace both of them.
We
It's
just
just
have
a
to
matter
find
of
somebody, which is
just have
gonna
to
be the
find
hard
someone.
part.
and I know the GIS is a wonderful tool. I use it, so forth and so on, but I also
GIS isn't the problem.
I got concerns. Well, we'll debate that issue, but
You own what you own.
yeah, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Passed.
Thank you. Last but not least, I think that's last but not least. Yes. Last month we had the Sand Hill River Watershed District up here at your board meeting to discuss their issues with the Sand Hill River ditch and then the concerns and that we have approximately 11 county ditch systems that drain into the Sand Hill River that drain through the Sand Hill River ditch. And so they're looking for a decision on whether or not they should start moving forward with redetermining benefits on the Sand Hill River ditch and whether we would be willing to move forward with redetermining benefits on our ditches that drain into the Sand Hill River. And so you have the letter in front of you that they wrote last Thursday after their board meeting. They want your support in moving forward with the redetermination of benefits of the Sand Hill ditch and in parallel completing redetermination of benefits on the impacted county drainage systems. And so they would like some kind of response from the five of you.
In complete review, after I read it all and after full discussion and your recommendations last time, I will move.
So you have, what did I put up here? A motion was made seconded by to approve starting the process of redetermining benefits of the county ditches, and a motion was made seconded by to approve writing a letter back to the Sand Hill River Watershed District.
So
You need two of them?
So
requesting two motions.
correct. One for let's redetermine benefits along
Yep.
with them. And then the second one, you responding back to the watershed district in a letter.
So I'll do the first one. We'll start there.
Before we go any further, this discussion was at the drainage conference beginning of February. I stood up and asked Mr. Kolb of, the panel that was actually up at the time. They deferred it to Mr. Kolb, Rinky Noonan, who was in attendance. And I asked a question, okay, you got watershed, county ditch either end, so forth and so on. The request here is, and I'm all in favor of redetermining. I think that's a good process. My question to that panel was, what happens if one or the other gets into the process and says, we're not doing it? And statute-wise, it doesn't get addressed anywhere in statute as far as the protocol, what'll happen. Then it's back onto the board, either county or watershed, to, if they're gonna continue going forward. But at the end of the discussion, those costs related to what's been spent goes back to, onto the assessment area, and basically suck up any maintenance dollars and be a special assessment back to those property owners. My only concern in this whole gamut of a redetermination is, let's just throw out numbers, and I don't know the numbers and the miles of county ditches down in that area. I've looked at the map, but Polk County has more, it appears, more ditch miles than the Sand Hill outlet ditch.
Correct. Yep.
And the area, it appears to be, Polk County assessment area ends up being bigger than the Sand Hill district area.
No, it all falls within, based on current practices, all our ditches fall within the Sand Hill River Watershed District ditches benefited area.
Yep.
As soon as it's done.
Yep.
Right now it doesn't, because the area of the current ditch, based on 1980 determinations, is real small.
Yep. Yep.
Once they redetermine benefits, then it becomes the whole instead of the small.
And I'm following you in that process, and I agree with you.
Yep.
My caveat is, let's say the property owners of Polk County ditches is now paying $1 per acre or whatever that magical calculation is. They're used to paying $1. And all of a sudden, after this whole process gets recalculated and the process goes forward and gets approved, and the property owner now is paying $8 instead of that $1. And there's a public outcry, why did we start this process? You see where I'm going with this discussion?
Well,
is, and it can happen on the watershed. It doesn't happen with the county side. It can happen on either side, and those boards were going to be receptive. Whoever the ditch authority is going to be receptive to those comments and have to suffer the public outcry. So I'm all in favor of redetermination, but what happens, and that was my question that got deferred to Mr. Kolb, and well, if one party doesn't, the other party does. The one that does go through it, they charge their segment to their property owners, and the one that gets overturned goes back onto the maintenance and so forth and so on based on the pro rata expense that was spent. So I just want to make the board aware of that is a slight possibility, and it has happened in the southern part of the state. There appears to be on these redeterminations a big difference between the south half of the state of Minnesota and the northern part of the state. A lot of the metropolitan areas, the counties have turned all jurisdiction over to the watersheds. And in some cases, they even have a metro watershed deal, which deals with a large conglomerate of ditches and large landmass. So, and there is a definite difference between southern Minnesota and northern Minnesota. And in our case, Polk County deals with 3 separate watersheds, and well, 4, yeah. And so
if
I
you can
just
call the
bring
Wild
this.
Rice part of Polk County, but yes.
Yeah. It is a possibility that somebody is going to be upset as a property owner, or a group of people will be upset about the new assessment and how it will affect their property. So, and I think we heard when we were in McIntosh 2 years ago, I think at first we did hear quite a bit of objection. And by the time the whole process kind of got done, that objection kind of was still there, but by fewer people. And
So the one thing you got to remember is, doesn't matter what the assessments are. It's what you spend on that ditch project. So it's sort of like our property taxes. My assessment at my house, assessor comes out, looks at my house, my assessment goes up by $20,000 or $40,000 or whatever it is for the year. Well, if everybody's goes up by the same percent, then if you spend $1 million, everybody's still paying the same exact amount. So when you look at ditch benefits, right now they have 1905 benefit dollar amounts in there. So 25 cents, 50 cents an acre. Okay. Well, when you upgrade it to 2024 or 2025 dollars, now, like you said, it's probably $8 or $10 an acre. But what you got to remember is everybody's goes up by that same amount.
Yep.
So if you spend $1,000, everybody's still paying their 1% of that $1,000. They still pay, 10 cents or 10, whatever it is. Okay. It's if people's change by a lot, which more than likely they shouldn't. What's going to end up happening is the lines between county ditches is going to become drawn in the sand. So this parcel drains into this ditch, not into that ditch. So that'll change a little bit. You're probably going to add acres, which is going to reduce the amount that people would pay when you spend $1,000. But there's going to be there's going to be those people on the fringe that now are going to be paying because their water does drain there. And so they have no right not to pay. They should be paying already, but they're not.
Yep.
This process helps that. And then also it helps with buying the right of way and having the buffers paid for that currently are being paid for by the landowner and not by the ditch system. So there's a lot more benefits to redetermining benefits than there is
Not
doing it.
well,
And I know. So I don't see, first of all, I don't see the county ditches pulling out of the process. You might have some landowners around the fringes of a county ditch system that are wondering why. Well, I can explain that to them. This is why. Your water's draining there. If you don't want your water to drain there, then we can shut that off and you can have your own impoundment area on your property, which they don't want. Okay, because we have the right to do that. But the fact is I don't see that happening with our ditch systems and the ability to do what we're doing. It's only going to make things better because in a few minutes you're going to have your ditch or your finance department come in and talk about ditch assessments. And if you base everything off of the 1905 benefited area and benefits, you can only raise so much money per year. By increasing it to 2024, now you can raise more money to pay off that quicker, whatever we do. So,
and I'm in total agreement with you.
Yep.
Just on the maintenance side.
Yep.
And in my opinion, the ditch systems, we need to increase the amount of money because operational costs have, especially in the last 10 years, exceeded what the ditch systems. So
Yep.
we need to really look at that maintenance side of it. But you had talked about the easement area.
Correct.
That is the area of concern because that was talked about at the drainage conference where it quadrupled and in some cases 10 times the dollar amount. This is basically a 16.5 foot easement. In some cases, on some county ditches, it's on both sides. And in my particular, I've lost 38 acres of farmland along a county ditch, and there's going to be people in this area also under that redetermination, and that requirement in the law could be the budget breaker that I'm concerned about, going from $1 to $8 just on that side of it, on the easement requirement of law that those people have to be compensated. And that was backed up by Mr. Murphy, that has done some other projects in the southern part of the state, similar to what our area is here. So I'm bringing it up for discussion because it could get ugly through the budget process just on the easement requirement of the statute. And
Well, we're required to have a 16.5 foot grass
Correct.
strip. They're required to have a 16.5 foot grass strip.
Yep.
So whether we have the easement there or not, they're required to have that out of crop production.
which
Okay.
it's
Which-
current,
Which
but
so right
the
now
statute,
they're paying taxes on 16.5 feet of grass strip.
I
As,
understand.
as soon as we redetermine benefits, then we buy that 16.5, and the whole ditch system pays for that 16.5.
Technically, you do an easement. You don't buy it, you get
Well,
you're
you get-
granted an
we-
easement,
We get an
and then
easement.
the property owners and compensated.
Yes.
In this project,
Yep.
I just did a rough look at the map, and if the ditches are on both sides, and kind of confirm my findings, sitting in the hotel room through Mr. Murphy, at 30%, this could push Polk County close to 500,000 to 600,000 of dollars involvement here. So, and that calculation could be off, and
Right.
I could be very high, but that potential is there, and I just
No.
making you aware that we
Well,
could
yep.
have this problem. So
I would have thought we would have had more issues up in the Gully, Chester, Johnson Township when we did 61 and 72. And once we went through that process and the landowners understood what we were doing, it went away.
Yep.
I would expect it's going to be less of an issue down here because the ditches are more their own system. There is no crossing over, and 55 drains into 16, 16 drains into the river, so you're going to still have that, but it makes it a lot clearer.
And in that case up there, there was a lot of land was brought into the assessment area or the benefited area that was not there in the past. And hopefully that's the case down here under that redetermination. The more land that's brought in, that lowers my concern. So
Right.
I'm just bringing it to your attention.
I'm assuming this change will make everything more fair.
Yes.
On that basis, I will second Paul's motion.
We had a lot of discussion before the second. Okay.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Who will draft the letter?
Why don't you draft what needs to be in there, and
Okay.
we can put it on county letter.
You'll have an engineering letter then instead of, you should get a grant
I'll
writer to
touch
write
it
your
up. I
letter.
didn't say it would go out the way you draft it.
Do we need to make a motion on that too now?
I would, please.
So moved.
Second.
On the letter, and I would, if Rich wants to draft it, have either me, the acting chair at this time, or Mr. Will Height sign it when it's prepared, just for the record, and
Yep.
all three.
Yeah, it'll be on your letterhead with his signature or the chair's signature.
With your motion, my signature, it's just as good with whatever.
Okay. All right.
Let him just-
Approval?
Aye.
All
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm gonna have to depart. We're gonna nominate the chair, sitting chair, to slide in. Paul was pointing at Mr. Strandell.
Is it,
Like you have to actually say a motion. to nominate somebody.
I nominate you. Go.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Going
Mr.
your-
Strandell, take over.
Annalee, you're up.
I know, but Ron's supposed to be here too, so
He's probably watching and on his way.
figured he would.
I'd grab the comfy chair if I was you.
Well, I'll grab the comfy chair, but I'll give him a chair to sit in.
Grabbing the mouse is the
And
next
do you
key
need
thing.
to do Jones'
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
report?
I thought you did pretty well.
There he
tonight.
is.
I'm sure of this.
As long as I get.
Hi.
I
So speaking of
That's a
ditches,
paper.
Topic of the day.
the topic of the day.
Oh, you have no minutes left. Just kidding.
I can't speak to that. All right, so today we are here to get a motion to have the board approve the ditch levy assessments for payable 2024. Those assessments totaled $550,500. So that is for work that was done in 2023.
You can
Okay,
scroll
then.
down.
I should scroll down so you can see the actual.
Oh yeah, I read those yesterday.
Oh, lots of red.
Lots of red. And I would note that for 2023, the county received almost $1 million between FEMA funds and watershed funds to help offset our costs. So that $550,500 is after that additional grant funding. Or if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Are we ready for a motion?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion has passed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
He had other obligations.
I believe I'm next then, since I'm already sitting here.
Yes.
Ron, you can increase the size of that a little bit over there on the
How do I do that?
that little magnifying glass in the lower right. The one that says plus,
Up.
right up, second one, that one.
There you go.
Thank you. And this item is to do the transfer from our actual ARPA funds to the county departments that have used that ARPA funds. And this is for the period from September 1st of last year to the end of last year. And when they have items within the departments they feel is appropriate for ARPA dollar spending, they'll code it as such. And then after the fact, we'll bring it to you for official recognition or permission to transfer it as a reimbursement after the fact.
We need some action on that.
Just an approval to do that, and we'll move the dollars by journal entry right away.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Not, all in favor?
And that was the total, right?
That is the total. It goes to those three departments as indicated on the screen.
All right, thanks.
And of course, detail is available if it was requested or whatever as to what they actually spent it on.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Yep.
I didn't hear yours yet. And I, oh, motion approved.
Thank you. One more, I would hope, relatively quick item here. We do have a retirement of the accounting officer over in the finance department. That's the person who's been responsible for all our banking. So her name is the top signature on most of our accounts, and the bank would like to see official board action just saying take her off now. And that sounds good to me that they that they ask for the minutes to make sure that that's accurate, that that's what we're doing. So effective the day before she actually leaves us, she'll be removed from the signing authority on all accounts.
You want this to be effective on a certain date?
We have the 28th in my recommended motion here.
Okay,
So move.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion passed.
Done. Thank you.
John, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, it moved rather quickly.
Are you gonna keep the pace up?
Pardon me?
You gonna keep that pace?
It's up to you. Let me scroll down here. All right. Basically, just have one item on the agenda with two of the five of you missing, and the other two are at the advisory board. Seems a little strange, but we have a request from the other waste energy facilities in the state to partner together to do a PFAS study. Please don't ask me or tell you what PFAS stands
I
for
was
right
just gonna ask you. But forget it. That's fine.
Perfluoroalkylated substances.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So basically, they refer to them as forever chemicals. It's a chemical that has many variations now. Almost every iteration of it is known for its, for the most part, it's a water repellency thing, but it's also gotten into a lot of other things. But it doesn't break down. It's extremely hard to break down. So it persists in the environment. It passes through humans. It passes through animals. Gets absorbed into the water system, and it comes down as rain. It's found, I believe, every place on the planet right now. There's very little known about it. We're learning more and more about it all the time. But it seems to be the big thing that all the regulators, whether it's federal or state, are concerned with. There's some health impacts with that, and again, a lot of those things are just kind of in the infancy stages, so more and more will be learned about it over time. But this is coming into impact a lot of municipal systems, wastewater treatment facilities, primarily landfills, stack emissions, whether it's a public-private facility, whether it's manufacturing or a waste energy facility like ours. So the state, the federal government are trying to get as much data as they can. I'm assuming at some point they will have enough data they will feel comfortable regulating it and knowing what the numbers actually mean before they do so, hopefully. No solo sarcasm there.
I didn't.
Not me. Boy, is this touchy. There you go. Get to roll down here. So, about a year and a half ago, we were asked to volunteer to do a stack test for PFAS in conjunction with our upcoming stack test. There weren't a lot of facilities that were real comfortable doing that. The process for doing that testing was still kind of hit or miss in terms of whether it would get you good numbers or not. It really wasn't thought out what the numbers would mean if you did generate them. So most facilities, I think, in the end passed. The desire for the information hasn't gone away. So what's happened is instead of waiting for the state to require it of every facility, our association, Minnesota Resource Recovery Association, that's what the MRRA stands for, has proposed doing a study. And they've sought out money for a grant, and they would propose to have up to three facilities be representative of all of them and do all of that testing. And they wouldn't just test the stack; they would test the ash, and they would actually do a report on what is in the waste before it goes to the facility. And what they're looking for is what happens to PFAS in the materials as it works its way through the facility. Where does it end up? And if there's a difference between what went in, what comes out of the stack or in the ash, that would be assumed to be PFAS destruction. And waste energy has thought that it might actually be the solution for a lot of the PFAS issues. It might actually be the one place where you're actually destroying the PFAS instead of binding it, which is what they would do in a wastewater treatment facility. Hennepin County is just released information now that they did at their big facility down by the Twin Stadium, and it shows that they actually had PFAS destruction somewhere in the neighborhood of 90%. Haven't really seen that, but that's been released now to the legislature in some of their discussions with some of the related things going on for proposals down there. So what we would look at is the study as proposed It would be about $450,000 project. We've received funding that would take $150,000 off of that total, so $300,000 would be the net, and then split amongst hopefully all the facilities are willing to participate, split equally amongst them, whether they participate, whether they're sampled or not. We should all benefit because it should be representative. That's what we're hoping for. So that would bring our request down to about that $50,000 to $60,000. They put out an RFP for doing that. They got 2 proposals back, and right now they're working with the 2 companies to figure out which one is the best proposal. So that's kind of where we're at. We brought it up to the 6-county group last Wednesday, discussed it. I think there's some confusion with some of them as to whether we were going to assess this to all of the counties, all 6 counties, or whether we were paying for it as part of the facility and paid for through the O&M, and that was our intent. So they're basically indicated in unanimous form that they recommended that Polk County go forward with this and partner with the rest of the facilities willing to do it, to do that representative PFAS testing. So that's what I'm bringing forward. That's the action item here, is to approve that. I don't know that you want an actual motion and second with a formal, or you want me just to tell them we're in agreement?
You could probably go either way. A consensus would be sufficient, I think.
I would think so, but so that would be the request, is for consensus of the board present to proceed with that.
Any opposition? No?
Mm.
You're home free.
So do you think that since Polk has already done it, that they might be one of the 3? I mean, who's going to choose the 3 facilities?
They won't do it because they didn't do the rest of the study.
Okay.
So would they get selected? Maybe, because it's more in depth. That would hit the high. We're the smallest of the facilities, so I think it's quite likely that they'll select us, but I'm fine if they don't. We also have processing on ours, which is different than some of the others. So I don't know. I think our understanding is pretty much if everyone's willing to do it, everyone's willing to the terms, no one's doing a conditional thing that says we'll participate, but only if our facility is tested. If we don't have that, I think the intent is to let the MPCA pick what they want. So there's no argument later. You agreed this was representative, and that's what we did.
Do you trust the MPCA after with whatever comes out of these testing results?
You're under oath.
Yeah, why would you ask me a question like that?
You don't have to answer, just smile or
Here's
frown.
here's how I'm looking at in regards to this. If they pick the 3 facilities, and that's how we're putting it to them, is please pick the 3 of the group that you want to be representative of the entire group, then I would certainly hope they would stand by it. That doesn't mean that they won't require this down the road. That's very likely what's going to end up happening no matter what. But my fear is if we don't participate in this, that they might come back and say, "Oh, now you're on the hook for doing it yourself." In a year or so.
Yeah. And that's what you explained the other day.
Yeah. So yeah, we're asking them to, in good faith, pick what represents, the industry in Minnesota. And again, that'll be more data than they have. So I mean, I don't know why that wouldn't suffice. And as they learn more, they'll probably have more questions. But we're going beyond what their original ask was too.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Okay, you have the endorsement.
I have the endorsement. So if there's no other questions for me, I can let you get closer to back on track.
This is the shortest you've ever been.
Well, I just kept it to one thing and I didn't do updates. If you want me to do updates, you might want to grab lunch and we'll come back and try and get out by supper time.
I just assume not.
I would just assume not too. So.
Okay.
We're good today.
All right. Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you.
well, thank you.
Have a good day.
Yep, you too.
Bring Sarah to the chair.
Get you back on track. Challenge accepted.
She's even have it memorized. That's how on track we're gonna go.
Challenge accepted. All right. So this is a request today for a subscription to Sprout Social Inc. So as part of our funding that we have from the Minnesota Department of Health for our infrastructure innovation projects, our goal of that project is to test new methods and ways of doing public health business cross jurisdictionally with other counties where we might have limited resources. And of course, we have workforce shortages. So there's skill expertise that's needed for certain public health things. So, long story short, we have a partnership going on 2 years now with Marshall, Pennington, and Red Lake counties focused on data, communications, and environmental health. And we have been piloting for our communications work different software or platforms where we can more efficiently do our public health community education as well, like public health messaging and campaigns. And then, more importantly, that we can have the data analytics available to us to inform how we do our work. So, as an example, if January is radon month, if you will, and so we did a campaign around radon. So, we're tracking, did people see our messages? Who saw our messages? When did they see our messages? And also, did that result in folks coming to our office to get radon test kits? Did it result in people requesting assistance for mitigation concerns? And so we're tracking our communication campaigns and efforts from social media relative to the work that it then has on the end so that we know if we're being effective and we're meeting our constituents' needs. So, the funding is through the Community Health Board, but this subscription would be under the umbrella of Polk County with access from our Polk Norman Monoman communications team because we do our communications across our Community Health Board. So the request is for $7,489 for a year subscription, and this would be a shared platform that we would utilize. And there's no county cost to this. It's funding from the Minnesota Department of Health to test new efforts. Right now, just to give you a sense, we spend approximately 40 hours every quarter doing data analytics. 20 hours in Polk and 20 hours in Norman Monoman. And so this will reduce it literally to about 5 clicks. So that's pretty incredible. So those communications reports that I've shown you a few times, those are a product of those analytic that analytic work. But it's really important to guide our work, but it also is very time consuming. So this will take out that aspect of it and save us a lot of money that way.
This
So
a one-time saving, or
this is a annual subscription, so we will utilize it for a year and then decide if it's going to add value, and if we want to, then we would share it amongst the counties that are participating.
okay?
hmm
March through March.
Yes,
Today through
March to March.
Mhm.
We're currently in a trial right now to make sure that the system will do what we want, and more importantly that we can get the data analytics that we want. We tested a few other softwares that didn't have the data analytics part of it, and so that was a deal breaker for us. So
Yeah, I thought we had it figured out, but
yes, we're happy with this product. It also is an opportunity for us to test a structure that perhaps the county would more broadly want to use, right? Like we're using it for a project specific to public health work, but I do think that we might find that it might have a lot of applicability for broadly across Polk County, but we'll work through the hard stuff and then let you know when we get it figured out.
Okay,
so moved.
is there a second? Any discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion is passed.
Thank you. Back on track,
All right,
I hope. Maybe.
close.
Close.
Just in time to end. There's nothing else.
Okay.
I won't keep you too long, but AMC did have a legislative update yesterday. I know Joan was on it. I don't know. I didn't see anybody else on it, but just a couple of issues that I think we're interested in. There was some discussion about the progress of bills. I didn't totally understand the process, but it sounds like they're trying to get bills to final decisions in order to spend time on the bonding bill, which of course we're interested in, particularly with our 9 county hub and spoke project. It did sound like the amount that's being bandied about has gone up to just under $1 billion. And those, but there was also nothing firm about that. That'll end up being end game stuff here, probably in another month or so. So we'll keep an eye on that. One item of progress that does interest Polk County, but counties in general, is the fallout from the Supreme Court's decision on the Tyler case that came out of Hennepin County. It basically was a case where an elderly woman's property was tax forfeited. County sold the property, received a lot more than what was owed on taxes. This has been viewed as a taking by the Supreme Court. Counties in Minnesota have been following the statute basically as it's been for decades. So the initial engagement with legislators, this was not very well understood, according to AMC, but that seems now to have gotten some traction, particularly in the governor's office, as to what modifications to statute must be made. It does affect us. It affects all counties. It's likely going to result in some sort of compensation back to the property owner. And then there's a look back as to how far back counties need to go. We don't have this issue, but some of the counties in the Arrowhead with large forest lands that, you know, a lot of those properties were tax forfeited back to the counties back in the 30s. And that seems to be where the genesis of the legislation came from. So it becomes kind of a problematic thing, but it sounds like there's some high level type of awareness as to what may need to happen in legislation. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to mention the employee sick and safe time. You know, we approved a policy based on what the legislature did last year. HR presented that to you earlier this year. Lisa worked with the labor attorney to draft up the policy and how to implement it. I understand that there's some second looks at that taking place at the legislature. We have our 2 AFSCME units have grieved our policy. So we're working on how to respond to that. I'll be working with the attorney and the business agent here later this week. Let's see where we're going with that. It was almost inevitable that this would happen. It seems the ESST legislation really seemed to target private sector. And part of the problems with cities, counties, is that generally we have negotiated sick time, vacation time, and this was not a nuance that got picked up in legislation. Probably still won't, but there needs to be some sort of semblance of order there. So Do you remember anything else of county interest?
Well, I mean, like going back to the bonding where the one bill is like for the replacement fund,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for if you receive state funding that you need to have I mean, they didn't really have did they have like a percentage or?
I missed some of that discussion, and
Yeah, because I mean, then it's, you know,
so
that you're required to put into a replacement fund to cover, you know, whatever they're going to. Another thing too is, one of the bills is, dealing with college pop-up voting locations. So, I mean, that could affect us. And then, you know, the slippery slope of, you know, if you allow colleges to do pop-ups, you know, who else can also request a pop-up polling location? And, you know, as the county being responsible for elections and, you know, it takes equipment, it takes personnel. So that could really be, I know that, there was like with our solid waste, there's a, you know, a bill going forward in regards to the SCORE funding. And then also, last session, there was the drainage portal. It had passed all the committees on the House side last year, so they're figuring that it'll probably show up in the House omnibus bill, but there's been no movement in the Senate, so, or at this time anyway. And then there was also some discussion with broadband contracts and requiring the prevailing wage. You know, that for some of the counties that their providers are indicating that they're not going to bid on, you know, the smaller providers aren't going to bid on projects because of just the cost, you know, for that. I think that was kind of most of the things that could probably. Oh, and then with now there's, you know, still continuing discussion in regard to the correctional pension plan, and then of the allowing inmates to have free phone calls instead of being charged.
Yeah, that came up before corrections.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would cost the county, what was that $224,000?
well, it would cost Tri-County, not
Yeah,
Polk
Tri-County.
County, but we're most of that. But yeah, it was quite a bit. But I know that Andy got to Matt at AMC with a nice thorough letter on that. So
Okay.
yes, some of these things I knew Commissioner Lee would take better notes on the session than I took. Some of these things I don't worry about until about the second week of May, because I kind of morph into other things. But
Yeah, and like, you know, yesterday was day 93 of a 120-day session, and just I mean, there was no number thrown out as far, but this year surpasses any other year as far as number of bills that are being presented, and which in turn limits the discussion time on each bill.
The hub and spoke is the one that we talked about at solid
Mhm.
waste, right?
Yep.
And on my way out the door, I text Johnson, and he responded. It's on the top of his list, and Deb the same. So Senator Johnson and them both, it's on the top of their to do. That's what he texted me back. He says, Paul, it's on the top of my to do list. Don't worry, I have your back. That's his exact text.
Yeah, John is following it very closely, and you know, it's a little different than where it was last year in terms of the
That's what he said.
total amount, which might be a little bit of an issue, because you know, when the bonding amount was under 700,000 and we're looking at 61 million, well, that's, you know, getting up towards 10% of the total.
Right.
But yeah, he's been good to work with. You know, it didn't work out last year, so we're right there at the top of his agenda.
Hmm.
And
It helps that he's the minority leader, and it's working there, but he's still got a hold of.
what helps is it takes 2/3 of both houses to approve, and that means you need the minority in there, and then the horse trading starts going. But
Yep.
you know, the one thing I think John has pointed out with 9 counties being involved is
Right.
that starts taking in a lot of legislators.
A lot of people. Mhm.
That 61 million doesn't look like so much if you divide it by 9,
Right.
No, no.
and it solves the entire region's
Well, he seems like he
issues.
knows how to. I don't know if negotiate is the right word, but maybe it is.
I think he does, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
With them because he's got 9 other places to deal with. So that was very. That was before I even walked out of the building. I went into the bathroom when I texted him on the way down, and he answered me before time I got out of the bathroom.
Good.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, that being very mindful of how we've presented this project and having Hubbard County as being the carrying because they have not done any bonding projects. And I think also having Udke on the Senate and Knutson on the House side
Mm-hmm.
carrying it, you know, those are
Mhm.
two new, you know, people to carry this bill. So I think,
That makes a difference.
you know, it's just getting more voices in there.
Yeah, and we have the work that was done with PCA on the demo landfill
Mhm.
requirements, and so this here you go. This meets those requirements.
Yep.
Now I don't, you know, you're making requirements and not thinking of the
You're
cost,
making
but this
rules
is
and
this
how
is
do we
the
go by
reality.
it? Mhm.
Right. And the puzzle is being put together. All the requirements you've made all these years. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, that's helpful.
Well, yeah, and you know that, yeah, they're making these rules and there's requirements, you know, and it's like you're doing it on a time frame, and you know the problem is that you know you look at all these bills that are being presented and how they affect you know our cities and our counties, and there's multitudes of bills that are affecting with costs that are tied to them. You know, so I mean, the county gets hit from so many different directions and departments, you know, with added costs, and it's, you know,
This,
we can't financially,
no,
you know.
this new thing they're coming up with, these new requirements with all these new, if this passes with the new, you have to have all these new containers and stuff. Come on.
Well, let's hope for what we're looking for, and if it covers that, then we'll be good.
Yes.
So
But, my.
we remain optimistic, and
Right. I'm going to
Yeah.
haul my garbage.
I mean, there's unfortunately there's you have to pick and choose your battles because there's just too many battles that we just can't.
well, it's far be it from me to be the one that says, you know, since society is getting more and more complicated and our issues become more difficult. But I mean, this is the process. So you go through it and it ends, fortunately, you know, in, I don't know when it ends, May 21st is what I think it ends, but,
Well,
you know, where we are now and where we'll be then will be different.
Like I told you before we started, my frustration comes from the top. And we have to take care of us locally. And this is one of those local things we need to stay focused on and take care of us locally. But it depends on those above us, and that is so frustrating. So when we can take care of us locally, and I know even as simple as this dude that wants to build his own convenience store, you know, that's a local issue. And he's, maybe it's gonna work, maybe it ain't gonna work, but he's trying to, and I don't know these people from Adam, but he's trying to better our area, I think, by putting a new convenience store out there. I don't know if that's gonna be good or bad.
It's not really a convenience store.
I don't know what it is.
It's cannabis.
A what?
It's a.
Cannabis.
Cannabis.
Oh, for crap's sakes. Whatever.
But maybe we'll see you there. If the issue is going to be whether the requirement for a paved access happens, because
Oh,
that's even more local than Polk County. That's
silliness.
Lowell Township.
No wonder your hesitancy, but that's just my fault. But anyhow, he's building the thing, that's his prerogative. But the stuff is going up everywhere.
He chose the site, and that goes through the CUP process. And
Mhm.
but yeah, you gave him an extra year, so we'll see where he's at next year.
The unfortunate part is now knowing what that is, sustainability. Is he going to sell enough to? I don't know that,
It's a competitive industry.
because you can buy all you want online
Probably.
and good stuff. As far as good stuff goes, I don't know. I don't use it.
Well, 2 years ago you couldn't because it wasn't legal. Now it is. And
Yeah.
that wasn't us, that was the legislature. So
Yeah.
it goes up and it comes down, and
It's still a lot of things to be figured out.
But it's you know, he's trying to better bring local stuff in, whatever. And there's a lot of people out there that use the stuff. I just don't order it. Or
well, that kind of brings up the whole cannabis thing too, because I think that there's some, are they looking at,
Well, they still
it
don't
was
have.
kind of a messy piece of legislation to begin with, and then it gets refined, of course, after the fact.
Mhm.
So we may see some changes there, but
They still don't have a commissioner for the department.
yeah,
Um,
it's not so easy to do.
no.
I have to make a motion, or can I just go?
Well, if you leave, we're
Oh.
gonna have a quorum, but I don't have anything more if you want to adjourn the meeting.
Well, adjourned.
There you go.
I'll
And I gotta
do.
pee
I'll
besides.
do my forum next
Oh,
time then.
we can wait.
Oh, we
I'll wait.
forgot about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So we
Okay.
didn't adjourn. We still on? Okay.
Okay, so I'll, try and keep this short. I went to a Fosston City Council meeting a couple weeks ago in regards to the hospital there. Essentia has stopped performing deliveries there. Plus, there's also other, even like lab work, they're sending out to be processed. And so they are scheduled for arbitration July 8th through the 11th, because actually the property is still owned by First Care Medical.
Services.
So, Essentia is just the provider there. And, so.
And they broke that contract, right? Because they were supposed to provide those services. My
It was,
understanding.
yep, so as part of their contract was that they would provide
Obstetrics and delivery.
obstetric services.
Mhm.
But now Essentia is claiming that they provide prenatal and post, and that there is the delivery actually part of the service, and there was discussion too about that there were supposed to be notices that Essentia provided, which were not within timeframes. And so, I think they have a good chance in arbitration, and, the city attorney also feels that way too. And I think no matter what happens, that, Essentia, or that First Care will break off with Essentia, and that could, after arbitration, that could still be another year down the road for that process to carry out. And it's the largest employer in the area. So there's just concerns, and the employees they feel in the dark because they're not being updated. And so part of this special council meeting was to let employees know kind of where the city is coming from, and what their thoughts, and the First Care Board has been very meticulous on discussions with other rural hospitals and how they go about providing services and those type of things. So I think that they do have a good path plan going forward.
Are they
Yeah.
looking at obtaining anybody to deliver babies then?
Well, that's their plan, is
Okay, good.
to, and um, there's been issues with patient because they've been pushing all the deliveries to Detroit Lakes. And there was a woman who she was going to her prenatal in Foston and had her birth plan all prepared, and was going to have a sterilization procedure done, after her delivery. And she got to DL and was told that they would not provide the service because they are a Catholic
Sure.
hospital, so that she would have to go back to Foston to have it done.
Have that service done.
So she was having to go through 2 major surgeries
Sure.
versus one. So, the plan is for them to be able to bring those services and some of these other services that have been pushed out back in-house.
Sure.
And then I had the AMC Futures meeting. Some really interesting topics. We had discussions in regarding to the AI, robots, holograms, and there's a lot of scary things that are coming out, but at the same time, these things can be positive, because how we're using robots in Foston at the incinerator, that's a positive thing to be using the robots with. One thing that just blew my mind was when they were talking about holograms, of using them in hotels to check in, and they can change the appearance of the holograms and the voices, and they're programmed to be able to sense when somebody approaches them. And the video and stuff was just kind of
Can they
strange.
correctly process your check-in with your credit cards is what I would like to know, since we can't get it.
Well, I'll be testing that in a couple weeks, so
Okay.
we'll see how that goes. Yeah, and then we also spent a lot of time on. Oh, and then I thought this was interesting. They talked about how it's taking like certain period of time for certain technologies to take off or to reach 100 million users. So with cell phones, it took 16 years to reach 100 million users. Internet, it took 7 years. Facebook took 4.5 years, and Chat GPT has only taken 2 months to reach 100 million users. So, just things are progressing so much faster. Yeah, and then, a lot of discussion on mental health, and kind of started the discussion of how things changed in 1981 when the legislature closed the Rochester State Hospital and kind of tried to go more into person-centered care. Where they close these hospitals, and like Rochester at the time when they closed them, they had 650 patients and 650 employees throughout the facility. And so, closing that one facility and trying to find beds for 650 people, um, and just how, we're a lot of people with mental health issues are, I mean, they're in the jails, they're in the hospitals, emergency rooms, they're homeless, and a lot of these people, they're not receiving treatment. And then you tie in substance abuse, and that just, creates a higher threshold of, just all the issues. And, we're seeing that the issues are affecting younger and younger people. I mean, kids. A social service person from one of the counties that's on our futures board talked about where they have parents that are not able to deal with their kids' behavior issues, and they are actually just dropping off the kids at social service and saying, we can't deal with them anymore. And that's to think, I mean, as a parent, to think about doing that to your kid, just how things have really, there's just a lot of problems out there, and how, what's the path forward, what's the correct way of handling, to make sure that we, that these families and people receive the, the help that they need. And so then I went from that to a shack board. It's shack board, and kind of discussion on health equity throughout the state. And we had some discussion on cannabis and still a lot of the unknowns, and just where that's going down the road. I did my monthly radio program, and then I had solid waste, which we've already talked about a lot. Kind of positive on hires that, we've been able to fill some of the positions, and recycling prices seems to be going up. So, that'll help the budget. And then I had soil and water district. That was pretty much just normal things. They are having some issues with the person that's doing their accounting on getting things done in a timely manner. So hopefully that they'll be able to get that taken care of. And then I had a shack executive meeting. And we just kind of went over how the shack meeting the previous week had went, and just kind of looking at our programming going forward, and kind of looking forward to our retreat that we'll be having in October. And then I was on the AMC legislative update yesterday, and I am meeting Colleen Hoffman here shortly to go over our 2022 audit, and just some issues and recommendations going forward. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Is that it?
that's more than enough.